Yes.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, well, just a little bit late, but with fair turnaround, really, not quite as slick as your revision. They give them 35 seconds between acts, but we did all right. May I please welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Planning Committee for the financial and council year 2025-26. Start off with the preamble about the recording. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community in local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddulph Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. And now we turn to tonight's agenda. The first item on the agenda is the election of a chair and a deputy chair for this committee. So may I ask, please, for nominations for the position of chair? Councillor Rogers.
Mr. Mayor, can I nominate Councillor Jim Garvey for this coming season, the 25-26 season, please, for the Planning Committee Chair?
Thank you. And may I a seconder?
Yes, can I second that, please?
Yes, thank you. Are there any other candidates to be nominated? No. In which case, we just have one candidate to vote for or vote about. So those in favour of Councillor Garvey, please. I think that's a clear majority.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any against?
Any against or any abstentions?
I'm not on this committee.
That's on the committee. Yes, thank you.
I'm not on this committee.
Thank you for that clarification, councillors. So, Councillor Garvey, you are now chair of this committee, and I'm pleased to hand the role over to yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First thing I actually need to double check is with the ship officer is, are we quorated? We only have 4 members present. Is that sufficient? Or 5 with the Mr. Mayor? Okay, we have 5 members present. Yep. Okay, thank you. Just double checking that. In that case, now I'd like to call for any nominations for the deputy chair of the planning committee for the 2025-26 council year. Councillor Rogers.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can I nominate Councillor Mike Hopkins for vice chair for this committee for 25-26, please?
Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Second.
Do we have a second for Councillor Hopkins?
I'll second it, Chair.
Councillor Jones seconding. Do we have any other nominations? That would be a no. Can I please have a show of hands, those in favour of Councillor Hopkins? Any against? Any abstentions? 2 gentlemen as not on the committee. So, that is carried. Thank you very much. In that case, Councillor Hopkins, you are duly elected to the vice chair of this committee, and I shall give you the notice at this particular point is that you will need to chair next month's meeting because I will be absent. So first lay that with you for now. Thank you. Right. Chief Officer, do we have any apologies for the meeting?
We have a number of apologies, yes. Councillors Eardley, Fletcher, Hawley, and Smith. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Rogers.
Yes, Mr. Chair, it's not apologies as such, but Councillor John Redfern would like to sit on this committee. I'll ask it in full council if that's okay to do so. I'm sure it will be, but we could clarify it in full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that point of information. Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Okay, moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any disclosable pecuniary interests and dispensations to be taken into account for any of the planning applications coming up?
It's just tonight's meeting.
It is for tonight's meeting.
Can I just, I'll exclude myself from the first two applications, 0188 and 0187, as I've had dealings with this, applicant in the past.
Okay, right, thank you. Okay, when we get to those, we'll do it. Councillor Yates.
Yes, I'm not on this committee, so I'm not quite sure whether I need to sort of declare any interests, but I won't say anything on planning application SMD 2025-0183 because I did receive some significant sponsorship for my cycle challenge.
I had a feeling that might be the case, but I think as you're not actually officially on this committee, you have no voting rights.
Get everything clear and above board.
Absolutely fine. Councillor Rodgers, I assume you're going to say the same.
Similar thing, yeah.
Okay, thank you. In that
Part
case,
of this side
Yep,
team would be
you will need
follow
to
there.
either abstain or exclude yourself from the meeting at that point.
Chair, may I ask, are they non-pecuniary interests? Are they all of those declared or?
The non-pecuniary, it's not monies or anything directly paid to us.
Okay, so this is actually item B. These are other interests.
A lack of money to do.
Yes,
That's
yes.
fine, thank you.
Okay. Right, thank you very much for clarifying that, Chief Officer. Right, okay, moving on to the minutes from the Planning Committee meeting held on the 15th of April. These have been through the Town Council. Do we need to go through review them again, or is it simple?
No, yeah, so.
Okay, so are you proposing those?
Propose that too.
Okay, can I have a second for the minutes? Okay, Councillor Lawton, thank you. Okay, can we show of hands those in favour of approving the minutes? Thank you, that's unanimous. Those present that are on the committee. Right, okay, moving into item 5, standing agenda item, to consider any proposed sites for local listing. Chief Officer.
I've got no further update than the one I gave at the last committee meeting. As I understand it, our sites will finally be brought forward and considered by a new committee, which will consider cultural and historical, that kind of listing applications at the district council. So I was advised, I think I said last time, that that would be set up post county council elections. So I watch this space.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, okay, so moving on to item 6, to consider the attached tree preservation order SM 332 land area 44 to 64 Tunstall Road, Biddulph. So let's just have a quick look at the document. Having not been presented one of these before, Chief Officer, what is our role in this? Can you?
It's a long time since I've seen one of these actually. So this was sent to us by the tree officer at Staffordshire Moorlands District Council for our consideration. I suspect if there's any issues that you want to raise as regards that, this is our opportunity to do it. Otherwise, we, in line with our tree strategy, are in favour, I think, of protecting trees. So that's perhaps what you'll want to do.
Okay.
Unless you've got specific information as regards to this particular application, and you feel the district should know about that.
Okay, so I've got Councillor Rodgers and Councillor Yates. Councillor Rodgers.
Yeah, I don't, like the rest of it, I'm not 100% certain, but if any of the trees have a girth of over 12 inches, as I've understood, it's TPO on them. I don't know if these come in that category or not. Quite honest, that's something that needs to be looked at.
Okay, I'm not sure on that either, Chief Officer. So I've not dealt with one of these in my tenure on this committee, so I think it's been a while since we did.
Well, my assumption, if I may, Chair, is that the very fact that this has been put forward for a tree preservation order suggests that it meets the criteria for that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been raised by the tree officer. So I would imagine that it meets the criteria for that, and therefore there are a number of restrictions on the management of that tree going forward.
Okay, right. I have some concerns regarding it, but I'll go around the table to those who put their hands up. So I've got Councillor Yates and I've got Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones, I'll take you first as you're a member of this committee.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, just very quickly, I mean, my personal opinion is with trees, if they're of a substantial size, then, you know, every tree should have a TPO on it. Unless there's a damn good reason why it shouldn't. I don't like to see mature trees chopped down, even if they're into the sycamores. I mean, I know the sycamore gap tree was a sycamore. People think the sycamores are weeds.
That is my concern.
But you know, a mature tree takes a long time to grow, and we should leave it alone unless there's a damn good reason not to. So I don't know why this is coming in front of us. I would have thought if, I don't know the tree warden's name, Steve Massey, has considered it for a TPO, then we shouldn't oppose it. So that's my opinion, Chair.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Yates.
Yes, point of information on this. I was approached by a resident to request a tree protection order on this because it's on the edge of a development site. And there was a number of trees, and this was effectively the last tree standing, so to speak. It is a very good looking tree. It's a very solid tree. It's certainly got a very wide girth to it. It's in the old allotment area at the back, and it does a little bit like the sycamore gap tree in a way. It does really set the scene for that particular area. There was initial concern and discussion around the fact that it was a sycamore, and sycamores usually by the very nature are self-seeded and grow prolifically in places where they're not wanted. And there is quite a strict scoring criteria which has to be applied. So you learn something every few years or so. And it went through the scoring exercise, and it did come in, it did get a high enough score to warrant a tree protection order if somebody had raised it and requested one, as opposed to an automatic one, but just by normal patrol. So it has been put forward with, as you can see here, a temporary protection while it goes through the formal process. So that is the background. It's certainly a very iconic tree, and it's one of the only few remaining.
Can I just ask a question? Excuse me.
You can, yes.
Is it because it's a sycamore that's a question mark over it?
No,
Or it's just a tree?
It's considered as just a tree, but normally sycamores aren't of such sort of heritage, heritage, perhaps the wrong word, value, which other trees are. I mean, oak trees are always sacrosanct. A Leylandii tree would probably be at the far end of the category, and sycamores are somewhere sort of in the lower middle when you look at trees.
Right, thank you for that additional information, Councillor Yates. Yes, I think my only concern is it's a sycamore, therefore it's technically it's an invasive species and non-native tree. I believe sycamores were brought in from outside, but I think taking on Councillor Jones's point that if the tree preservation officer believes that this is merits a tree preservation order, then I think we should go with that judgment.
Yeah, I move that we support it, Chair.
Okay. So I have a proposal from Councillor Jones that we support it. Do anyone second that proposal? Councillor Rogers seconding that. A show of hands, those in favour of approvedness. Okay, thank you. That's a unanimous. No one against it. There's no show of hands. I'm assuming abstentions from those who aren't on the committee. Right. Okay. So
I'll write back to the tree officer and say we support the application, the TPA.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Moving on to item 7, to consider the attached consultation regarding a proposed public spaces protection order, wildfires 2025. We have 3 attachments for this, Chief Officer. Yes.
Yeah, so I've just sent you what we've been sent. Obviously, it's an order that the District Council would like to bring in. There's a relatively short consultation period on that. So considering that this committee can look at orders and what have you as regards enforcement, this is why I brought it to you so that we can meet the deadline for the consultation with regards to that. Again, I would suggest to you that public space protection orders are not something that are frivolous or brought in regularly. It has to be a partnership exercise in order to bring those forward. So we're asked whether we are happy to support that or whether we have any other comments.
Okay, right. Thank you, Chief Officer. Do I have any, apart from, I've got Councillor Yates speaking on this, did anyone else want to bring in any information on it? So Councillor Yates.
Yes, again, just point of information. Thank you, Chair. Public space protection orders are time limited, so there is 3-year life span of a public space protection order. So this is come up for renewal as part of the environment and community remit. What we were looking for is to get the next one, instead of automatically rolling this forward, we wanted to have a cooperation between the 4 authorities who have concerns in this area. That is notably the alliance partner, High Peak, to get a common policy, which is sensible. Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, who manage the country park sites in the Staffordshire Moorlands, again, eminently sensible. And the Peak Park Board, which again, we would believe that that's eminently sensible. We haven't been able to wait for all 4 of those to come on board. The majority have come on board absolutely fine. I'm not going to say who hasn't at this moment in time, but it will still be valid within the area, within the Staffordshire Moorlands and a High Peak on their land. And given the fact that we are going through the most extreme dry spell in spring for over 100 years, and we have had a national proliferation and the local proliferation of wildfires so far, that is why the consultation period is relatively short.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Yates. So I think bearing in mind, reading documentations, if we are happy to support the proposed public space protection order, do we have someone to propose that from within the committee?
I'll move it, Chair.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Hopkins. Have a show of hands, please. That's all in favour. Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Right, moving on now to the item 8, new planning applications. So we'll be starting with 188 and 187. You should have all received the summary of the planning applications that I've sent out. Does everyone have a copy in front of them, or has everyone seen a copy? If they haven't, there is a pile of copies by the front door. Okay, right. So I've dealt with numbers 188 and 187 together because they both apply to the same building. They're both listed building consent for repairs to a small grade 2 listed barn with a full roof overhaul due to partial collapse. This is from Mr. Edward Boffey of Higher Overton Farm, Overton Road, Congleton. There's no pre-application advice. The proposal is basically a partial rebuild of spreading eaves and a bowing wall. They're saying that all the existing tiles and materials will be reused where possible, with some like-for-like replacement required due to rot and damage. The existing and replacement walls are sandstone. The existing replacement tiles are Staffordshire Blue machine tiles. It's unclear as to what the window frames are, but the indication of rot suggests that they are timber, and they've simply stated a like-for-like replacement. It is a note that the conservation team, from the consultation they've had, require approval and replacement of tiles and a specified timber replacement windows. The drawings show that restoration of the existing building to secure the structure. There's no application for change of use to domestic dwelling with this application. The plans also include 2 more recent structurally sound attached buildings with an indeterminate planning history. In terms of supporting statements, they're stating that the restoration is required to prevent further decline of the building to secure its future use. That's acknowledged by the Conservation Officer's report, which specifies as a strict control of approval for replacement materials and window frames. And the building is part of a courtyard, outbuildings of which were converted to a dwelling in 2002 under SMD 2001-0567, 2002-0993. It is in the green belt. It's below the threshold for BNG. It doesn't impact any of the neighbourhood plan policies. And the comments I would suggest on it, I'm suggesting no adverse comments, recommending compliance as long as it's subject to recommending compliance with the greenbelt requirements, and the conservation team report. Our recommendations are met in full. I would make the additional comment that while no change of use to residential is included, we might expect that in due course, but that is not the subject of this planning application, so should not be considered. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I would support everything you've said, Chair. Thank you. Just a question, really. Are the 2 applications, are there 2 items here because one is for listed building consent and one is for planning consent? Am I right?
That is, I think, as how I am reading it. The first one is listed building consent, and the second is for repairs to a listed building. So essentially, one's consent to do it and one's consent to do it, and one is the actual request to do it.
Yeah, I would support what you've said, Chair. I'd second that.
Okay, so anyone else want to speak on this at all? Okay, so councillor Jones, I'm proposing no adverse comments. Councillor Jones, second it. Can I have a show of hands for? Okay, right. Anyone against? And any abstentions? You're abstaining because you made the comment earlier in terms of taking no part in the. It should be recorded that councillor Hopkins took no part in the debate and abstained from the vote. Thank you. Okay, moving on to. You tick them off as I go, otherwise I'll forget and we'll go back and try and do the same thing twice. SMD 2025-0107. Mr. and Mrs. Daniels of Hillview Farm, Tower Hill Road, Mount this is for a replacement farm dwelling. Essentially, it's the replacement of an existing single floor property with a replacement two-story property, extending the footprint of the property in all three directions. The materials for essentially it is a new build on the site of an existing property, brick walls, tiles to the roof, UPVC windows, aluminium bifold doors and external composite doors. The original materials are not specified nor shown on the drawings provided, even though it does state that in the application. There are no design access statements. There are no supporting statements. In my mind, it is in the green belt. It's saying there's no BNG applicable because it's a self-build. In neighbourhood plan policies, there are several neighbourhood plan policies that are impacted, and several of them I believe it does not comply with. In terms of the natural environment features and the urban edge, there are no details of the there's no details for the site layout, landscaping, or the details of the garages and car parking. And therefore, I believe it does not comply with neighbourhood plan policies, NE1, natural environment, NE2, urban edge, and DES2, public realm car parking and movement. And therefore, we cannot assess them. It's a significantly larger footprint than the building, and it may impact drainage. So details of the mitigation against that would be required, I think, to judge compliance with sustainable drainage in 2. In terms of design, it's a nice design, but it is a very much bigger property. I have concerns considering overdevelopment because it's a very significant increase into the residential floor space. My recommendation at this point would be to recommend refusal because of its failure to provide adequate information to ensure that it complies with the neighbourhood plan policies. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Jones?
My comment would be, we haven't got enough information to call it really, but I mean, if you want to go a step further, I would agree with what you've said, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any other comments on this? So are you happy as a proposal that we recommend refusal because of the lack of information to ensure that it adheres to the neighbourhood plan policies?
I think we make the comment that we have insufficient information to make an informed decision, Chair.
Okay.
So we don't really.
So that was my point, and I think where I was going to with this is I don't think we can't put any other decision in other than say we can't accept it. We would recommend refusal because we don't have the information to make the judgment.
However you want to word it, Chair, I'm quite happy.
Okay, are we okay? Effectively, you'll second what I've just said.
Yeah.
So, can we have a show of hands for those who? Okay, so can we recommend its refusal until information?
It might be a perfectly acceptable development, but
I think personally, having seen,
information.
yeah, there's not enough information to be able to take a decision for us to be able to recommend one way or the other. And I can't say no adverse comments because there are a number of concerns regarding its failure to meet our policies. Yeah, so thank you. Moving on. Find the screen again. Right. Okay. Moving on to SMD 2025-0202. This is Mr. and Mrs. or Mr. Stroke, Mr. Shaw. Then we'll do it's just labelled as Shaw on the application. Land off Exmoor Lane, Biddulph. It's a proposed development for outlining planning permission with all matters reserved for a residential development of a former commercial yard. So I can see there's no pre-application advice. Basically it's outline planning permission for residential development of 4 detached properties on the site of a former processing yard. There are no details of materials as it's an outline planning permission. From a design access point of view, the statements say that the site hasn't ever had a formal application for its change of use to commercial use from farmland, greenbelt, but the site may have inherited commercial use from sustained unchallenged use as a commercial site. The existing site entrance will be modified to improve visibility. They're suggesting sustainability by having EV charging points and renewable heating systems for the houses that they're proposing to build there. The Coal Authority does have concerns that need to be investigated if outline permission was granted. From the main supporting statements, there's a BNG assessment of 15% increase in habitat and 66% increase in hedgerows from additional planting around the periphery. It is in the green belt. BNG is applicable. It does impact a number of neighbourhood plan policies, none of which I think it actually meets. My recommendation for this, again, would be to refuse it and request additional detail to show how compliance with all neighbourhood plan policies would be met. In the documentation, there is no reference at all made to the neighbourhood plan requirements, even though numerous neighbourhood plan policies are applicable. NE1 and NE2 development would not enhance the real character of the area, although the boundary and hedgerow planting does make some attempt for a softer transition. That's urban edge and local green space. NE4 and NE5, the site may be visible from both the Biddulph Valley Way, and it may be, depending on what is built there, it may be visible from protected views 1, 5, 6, 9 and 10 from the town centre. As far as HOU1 housing is concerned, the proposal doesn't meet any of the welcome types. Please remember that they're proposing to develop a greenbelt site here. INF1 and DES1, there are no details of sustainable drainage, which I think is a key requirement going forward for a development. There's 2, insufficient detail to determine if there's adequate car parking provision, because they're suggesting 2 spaces per property, but there's no indication of how many bedrooms there would be in those properties, and that may impact the number of car parking spaces they need to have. We'll come to that with another application later. Consultation responses from United Utilities, just giving them advice on sustainable drainage and water efficiency, picking up sustainable drainage again as a requirement. The Staffordshire County Council footpaths are requesting more detail. SMDC and peak footpaths identify that public right-of-way Biddulph 16 should remain open as that borders the site. And as I said earlier, the Coal Authority have a substantive concern as a coal mining risk assessment, and a coal mining risk assessment is required. As with the last one, which I didn't say at the time, I'm recommending that goes forward because it's failing to meet so many of the neighbourhood plan policies, and it should go through to the neighbourhood plan working group depending upon the decision that comes out of the planning authority. Again, the same with this. Any comments? Councillor Rogers.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've been trying to open this on my phone, it won't open, to be quite honest. Can I just see the site location on there before I say anything else?
I may be able to show you the site location.
Just because something happened to one, maybe on the same one, I'm not sure.
It's what's currently, I think, a skip processing yard.
It's on the left, Bates Lane.
Yes.
Well, if it's the site I'm thinking of, planning application was put in quite a long time ago for stables there.
Yes.
And the stables look like bungalows. So we declined it. We said it could be altered at later date into residential.
Yeah.
Now is it the same site?
That's entirely possible. Let's just have a look.
Come through on appeal.
Councillor Yates.
Yes, point of information on this. If we can expand that photograph, I sent this through yesterday so that we could have an understanding of it. Because I personally, there's a few things here. One is going forward, it's a very tired, derelict site at this moment in time. I mean, it looks awful as you drive past. It's got steel gates. Historically, it's an old colliery. It's not even got issues with coal mining underground. It's actually a colliery.
Yes.
You can see quite clearly the site on the right-hand side as it is now, and the site going back to about 1890. And you've not got just a colliery site, but you've got a shaft which services a colliery and shafts on the other side. The report from the Coal Authority is as damning a report from the Coal Authority as I have ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. Normally they sort of edge the best. They're expecting voids and everything in here because
Just mine on that.
Because basically these started off as footrolls and went deeper, didn't they? So we all know that about Eggs Moor Lane or whatever. Notwithstanding that, which are obviously negatives, the other thing is that there was a planning application, I'm sure, for the edge of this site for a single bungalow for the same applicant, which got rejected at here and at district. Well, it was actually recommended for approval here because it tidied up a site. It was an old table site. It was rejected at district for the same reasons as you put forward on Neighbourhood Plan. It went to appeal and it was overturned at appeal and approved to go forward. Now, this planning application has come forward either to replace that or at the side of that. I'm not 100% sure, but the reality of it is that if you're looking at that as a brownfield site, then it's definitely a brownfield site. And I think it's definitely a brownfield site, pretty obvious, because one, it's being used at the moment as a skipyard, so it's a current industrial site. Certainly, if you're looking at it in old money, it's definitely a greyfield site because it's obviously very clearly a colliery. And to be honest, it still looks like a colliery, in the context that collieries were built. So in some respects, tidying the site up with a small, neat development there is not too dissimilar as what happened at the crossroads of Towhill Road and Exmoor Lane anyway, where those barns were rebuilt and converted, and there's about 5 or 6 dwellings there, which equally is in the Greenbelt, equally in the same area. The reality of it is, because the boundary of the tree line at the back, which you can clearly see on that photograph, it's not actually visible unbelievably, it's not actually visible from Biddle Valley Way. Because
I couldn't potentially visible, but
yeah, you can see, well, the topography doesn't see, I mean, I did go walk around basically to have a look at it because, well, it's the fact it's a colliery and so unstable. And like I say, I've not seen a report like that from the Coal Authority. It would need considerable investigation. And to be honest, if they did find any voids, it would need an awful lot of grouting and piling before anything could go on. Much the same way as what happened at the Victoria site. I know this is a lot older, but the are so shallow there, which is why they were accessed by these small mines, that they haven't got the weight of ground above them to collapse completely. So the Coal Authority are mentioning high probability, high likelihood of voids. The reason is that they're so shallow because it just followed. It was where the coal seam hit the surface, so to speak. So on that basis, but I think if there wasn't any concerns and it was just down to the Neighbourhood Plan, my feeling is because the precedence has been set by the inspector, it possibly would, with modification perhaps, in light of parking, in light of drainage and etc. It would probably be minded to be approved, but I think the report from the Coal Authority that's summed up by that image there, and that's why I sent that through to just so we can have an informed decision.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for that additional information. Right, you can reprimand Councillor Yates later, please.
Or just.
Thank you. Okay, right. Right. So essentially, at the moment,
Jody, the keyboard. That's thinking.
The proposal on the table at the moment is we aren't the planning authority, as Councillor Jones has pointed out in the past, so we cannot approve or refuse it. But we, as the custodians of the Neighbourhood Plan, which is a planning document, then I would recommend refusal on the grounds that there is not sufficient information to ensure that it does comply. If you want to reinforce it with also the concerns regarding the Coal Authority report, I'm happy to reinforce it with that.
Can I just say, in the Coal Authority report, it does say that it must be part of the planning. If it is successful, this Coal Authority
Site
investigation must be carried out by a suitably qualified person, and they're implying that narrative that they've sent, they haven't got the proper qualifications to make any comment about it.
So
that's what I was.
Are we happy to recommend refusal on the grounds of failure to demonstrate compliance with the Neighbourhood Plan and concerns regarding the mining heritage history of the site? That's a proposal from me here. Anyone want to second that? Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Have a show of hands, please. I think that's again unanimous. So we're having a good day, aren't we, tonight? Yes.
Are you happy for us to send those pictures that Councillor Yates?
Can I also say something? I'm just interrupt.
Yes.
As in the narrative, I don't know why this one's fascinating me. In the narrative, it says they couldn't show map because of copyright concerns.
That would suggest that that's a herring rouge, I would propose. Red herring.
I couldn't find that.
You want it in?
I lived with that.
Like from Councillor Hopkins, I had to.
Just a point of information.
Yes.
I couldn't find that map.
Yeah, just a point of information. These maps used to have been stored by many organisations where there was a copyright on them. There used to be a watermark by the organisation who owned the maps, and you know, for personal interest, you're allowed to sort of look at the maps so often. They now owned and released by the of all places, the Museum of Scotland.
Yes.
So you access them through the Museum of Scotland, and they are there for public use. There's no watermark on or anything anymore. It's quite good how you can overlay.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Yates. So I think that essentially if the answer to your question is yes. Yeah. Okay. Right. Just as a background, that there is a history of refused applications on this dating back to that site dating back to 2004. Okay. Right. So moving on, I believe to SMD 2025-0183. This is the one, Councillor Yates and Councillor Rogers, where you've declared a non-pecuniary interest. This is for an applicant from Piper Boats, Unit 2A, Prospect Way, Victoria Business Park, Knipersley, proposed single-storey part store extension to the existing commercial unit. No pre-application advice. It's basically a construction of an extension to an existing building. The walls and roof were metal cladding to match the existing building, doors, metal roller shutter to match existing. No additional information on design and access statements. In terms of supporting the main points, it's not in the green belt. It says that BNG is applicable on the application form, or they tick it that BNG is applicable. They include a BNG report, but the BNG report states that BNG isn't applicable because it's a de minimis exception and therefore none required. The Coal Authority report showing no existing workings, but comments regarding potential escape of trapped gases when the construction's done. It impacts two of the neighbourhood plan policies in that potentially it may be visible from the Biddulph Valley Way. Well, sorry, but it's not going to be visible from the Biddulph Valley Way, but it might have been thought to be because of where its location is, but it's hidden. And from a design point of view, it's standard design, so I think it complies on that front. My recommendation on this is no adverse comments and send it through. Councillor Jones.
Second that, Chair. I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? It's a local business, local employer,
Yes.
successful local business. It's on an industrial park.
Yes.
What's not to like?
Yes, I think from my point of view, we have nothing to say against it. I don't think there's anything we can say for it. It doesn't in any way suggest it's going to generate additional employment, but if it secures the future of a business in the town, then okay, right. So there we go. Proposed that no adverse comments, seconded by Councillor Jones.
I'll second that.
I'll second that. Okay, so there a show of hands, please. Again, all in favour. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to SMD 2025-0204. This is the last plans that was received in a time for the main agenda. This is an application from Mr. David Ward of 51A Park Lane, Knipersley. The proposed development is an application for a variation of condition 2 in relation to a previous planning application, SMD 2023-0379, to create a new dwelling within the current residential curtilage of number 51A Park Lane. There's no pre-application advice. The proposal essentially is modification of plans to a proposed new dwelling approved under a planning application SMD 2023-0379 to add 2 further bedrooms to the loft and to increase the footprint of the dwelling by the addition of additional ground floor utility room on the northern elevation. The application seeks to modify the conditions applied by the inspector when the application was approved on appeal. I'll come to the comments on that below. No details on materials, no design and access statement. Environmental health have a comment in it, but they had no objections. It's not in the green belt, no BNG. Right. At this point in time, it impacts a number of the neighbourhood plan policies. HOU1 is a self-build and therefore will be one of the welcomed developments. HO2, it's within the curtilage of an existing property and it may possibly impact, so it's technically potentially infill because it's between other houses, but it may possibly impact on adjacent properties and therefore may be considered to be overdevelopment of the site. Des 1 and Des 2 are both, it's both contentious that it meets these two policies. The original application came through this committee as a consultee, and we recommended approval, subject to highways and utilities conditions that were being put on the site. But it was refused by SMDC on the grounds it was detrimental noise disturbance impact on the residents of number 51, their policy DC1. That decision was subsequently overturned on appeal, but that appeal applied specific conditions. Condition 2 was specified that the plans, these were amended plans, not the original plans that were submitted. So these are the amended plans that it required it use the amended plans, which was a single-story property with no loft rooms. But the original 2023 that had been rejected, but was overturned on appeal, did have the second-story plans, but the appeal essentially conditioned it on having no second story. Therefore, I don't think we can make a comment on this because we've made judgments back in the past, and I think we should defer it to the planning officer because I think it's probably beyond our remit. So I'm not going to propose any recommendation, but simply defer it to the planning officer to make a decision because it's a contentious issue that's been through appeal and rejection in the past. Are we happy?
Say no.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Show of hands, please. Thank you. Did anyone else want to speak?
Doing well tonight, Chair. I don't normally agree with you this much.
That's fine. I've tried to take all your thoughts into consideration in all my deliberations, Councillor Jones. Right.
Must be slipping. It must be.
No, you're getting old. That's all. Right. Okay. So moving on to item 9 to consider supplementary applications, and we've received a lot of these, such that I was still working on them at 11 o'clock this morning. You should have received the latest ones. Hopefully, they were sent out by Ange. Thank you, officers, for your work on this. So the first of these is SMD 2025-0192. Mr. and Mrs. Forrester, 6 Hendon Drive, Biddulph. It's a conservatory to the side elevation. There's no pre-application advice. It's the erection of a conservatory stroke orangery stroke glass roofed extension. When you look at the pictures, if we can look at the pictures, it would be quite useful for this one. Jodie, if you have it or whoever has it. Okay, is Ange on it now? Thank you, Ange. Okay, right. So,
Yeah, Ange.
yeah. Okay. So, the
92.
it's basically the location of the conservatory, orangery, extension, whatever you want to call it, encloses the existing bathroom and bedroom 3 third bedroom windows. The walls are existing brick, and they're proposing the brickwork to match that. The roof will be glass with rosewood UPVC frames, which matches the existing window treatments in the property. Okay, can you see that there?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, so there's no design access statement, there's no supporting statement, it's not in the green belt, no BNG. My only comments on it was there's no comment about sustainable drainage, and they are putting quite a considerable extension on the side, so it is going to have cover a small, modest portion of the garden. I don't think that's sufficient to refuse it, but it's just a query. And the design, is it really a conservatory? But apart from that, I would suggest pushing it forward with no adverse comments. I can't think of any planning reason why we would want to refuse it, other than the fact that is it really what they say it is? Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got no negative thoughts, just a consideration that the soil pipe from the bathroom is still usable. Obviously, just obvious things like that. Really.
That's my concern. The fact that it cuts across the back of the bathroom and one of the bedrooms.
You popped it in, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, do you want to make a comment, Councillor Yates?
And it's not
Only to say that,
like some.
it's quite common in houses now that soil pipes are actually boxed in within the house.
Mm.
Right.
So the proposal is no adverse comment. Send it through.
Yeah.
Do I have a second for that?
Well, no, I'll second it.
Okay, second. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I show of hands, please? Thank you. So just as a comment on that, there's a high hedge around the whole of the property when you look at it from the road, so it probably actually won't be visible from the roadside anyway. You can't see the location from Google Maps. Comment? Right, okay, right, moving on. SMD 2025-0234. Rachel Halls of NatWest, it's the ATM up 63 High Street, Biddulph. This is actually an advertisement consent for a proposed tablet to be placed around the existing ATM. No pre-application advice. It's a revised ATM layout. It looks as if it's actually a replacement ATM with an additional liveried panel on it. Materials are aluminium body acrylic face panel. No design access statements, no supporting statements. It's not in the green belt. There's no BNG. None of our neighbourhood plan policies apply to it. I would propose to put it through no adverse comments and refer it to the working group.
Seconded.
A second for that. Do anyone else want to say make any comment on it? Okay.
Just one there.
Yes.
It shouldn't be, but as long as it's not flashing lights, I don't think it will be.
I don't think it's
think it will be.
illuminated. I think it's just it's got a bright liveried panel on it.
Okay, yeah.
It's basically it's an aluminium panel with an acrylic face panel on it with the purple.
It's going to be like a jukebox.
Okay. So can I have a show of hands for no adverse comments on that? Okay, thank you. That's why you're agreeing with me. I'm putting loads through with no adverse comment, Councillor Jones. Right, okay, moving on to the ones received this morning or yesterday, was it whatever? Yesterday, right, okay. SMD 2025 0238, Mr. Damon Brough of 22 Millhaid Road, Knipersley. It's a front and rear extension, removing the existing roof. Well, can we pull up the Google Maps of Millhays Road, please? And then we can see what I'm talking about when we talk about them. But essentially, it's a front and rear extension. It removes the existing roof line and raises the roof height to accommodate, to provide accommodation for 2 bedrooms and a bathroom with a through single flat roof dormer, and there'll be pitch dormers added to the front.
How far up is it?
It's number 22.
So near the bottom. Where does the numbering start?
No, it's almost at Squirrel Haze.
Oh, that end.
Yeah, it starts in Park Lane and
Yeah. If you just type in 22 Millhays Road, it should actually take you to the location itself. And then if you street view it. Okay, if you street view it down to there, please. There we go. Right. Okay. So, right. So you can see what the properties are like currently. Okay. So the proposal the extension to the front will bring the front line in forward to where the current apex roof line is coming out at the front of the property. But it will go straight up. It's squaring off the front of the property and increasing the size of the bedroom that's currently looking at the diagram there on the right, as we look at it. But it removes that characteristic front apex that is present on all the other houses down the roof. The extension to the rear is across the whole width of the property beyond the existing flat roofed extension that seems to be on the property, that's been added to the property at some point, to create an open plan kitchen, dining, living room. With the bathroom relocated on the ground floor to accommodate that. The raised roof height accommodates 3 additional rooms and a shower room on the first floor with front apex dormers and the rear half of the roof from the current main apex, transverse apex line going horizontally back. The materials, the walls are brick to match the existing, the roof tile will match the existing, the flat roof will either be a single ply or a felt membrane. The windows are UPVC. The existing windows are white. The proposed windows are cream. Make of that what you will. The doors are existing white composite. The proposed doors are UPVC with the colour to be determined. There's no design access statements. There's no supporting statements. It's not in the green belt. It's no BNG applicable. The only 2 policies that might be applicable are DES 1 and DES 2. DES 1, the design is very striking. There's no 2 ways about it, but it's very different from the surrounding extended properties by removing the characteristic front room apex. I would query whether that is in keeping with the local developed landscape because it will look very different to all the properties around it. On the planning application, can we see the plans on have you got the planning portal open, the planning application? And as far as DES 2 is concerned, there are no details of parking space for the increased property size. And I would reference on this, the requirements to comply with DES 2 would be SMDC's minimum of 3 allocated defined parking spaces within the curtilage of the property. So if you look at that, right, it's going to look very, very different to everything else on the street. And as I say, there is no location plan that shows the required 3 parking spaces, which would be required for it now being a 4-bedroom property according to SMDC requirements. So my current recommendation is none of our standard recommendations can go forward, and we refer it to the planning office for compliance with those 2 policies, because I don't think it does. Councillor Jones, you had your hand up. Councillor Rogers as well to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is radical, there's no doubt about it. But to be honest, if you look along that line of bungalows, certainly a lot of the bungalows on that estate on Colwyn Drive and Menai Drive, the different sort of amounts of inserted dormers that have been square dormers that are on the top of pitched roofs. I mean, there's one just below there. It looks better than them. That's all I was saying. No disrespect to the owners of those properties if they're listening.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it will look different, but it isn't going to look any worse, I don't think. Certainly not from the front.
Well, that was my concern, but yeah, I understand what your view on this. Right, Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In principle, I'm all for it, but I think 2 things should be considered. The 45-degree light, which I don't think will affect, but it should be looked at, and any valid neighbours' concerns, which should be considered. Other than that, I don't think it's too bad.
Okay, right, thank you. Councillor Yates.
Yes, thank you. I think if you look at the overhead view in the photographic option.
Yeah. Okay, so if you go back to the just close your street view window.
Go to street view. The arrow at the top where it says 22 millage. Oh, yeah, there. The way to the arrow. Click on the arrow at the side. That's it. Click that.
There you go.
Zoom right in on it. If you compare it to the development next door, on top,
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
and compare it to the ones with the extra, there's a right collection, perhaps not at the front, but at the back, to create a very similar size and footprint. So
my concern isn't the size of the property. The actual extension of the footprint isn't particularly big, particularly to say compared to the other ones. My concern in terms of the there's one in terms of the is it consistent with the developed landscape. I'm conscious of the.
just come back, Chair. Well, you know, because I'm not necessarily disagreeing. What I was going to say was that I was minded to think it's an overdevelopment out of keeping with what the area is. Obviously, looking out from above, there's a number of properties which are at least of similar size. However, I do wonder whether that change on the front is in keeping with this with the street scene, which does have a relevance to it, even though there are dormers put out, which actually of various types.
There are a number of modifications to properties down here, but in every case that I could see when I went up and down the street, that sort of distinctive
Principal
apex at the front is present. On this, it isn't. It's very, very different, and that is why I would query it and say pass it to the planning officers rather than us make a specific recommendation here. Councillor Jones, you wanted to come back?
No, I was just going to say, I think that's a more sympathetic treatment of converting it to a dormer.
I don't doubt that.
I'm putting a box on the top. I think
Doesn't look bad at all. Doesn't look bad at all from the front.
Doesn't look bad at all, and I'm shocked actually. I mean, I drive up down that road all the time. I only see the fronts. I've never seen the backs. Well, not for 50 odd years when I used to be the paper lad that went. I used to deliver papers down that road, and they were all little 2-bedroom bungalows then. Problem is with those houses is they were too small in the first place. Every single one of them, I think, has been extended at some point because they just were never big enough. And as I say, I can't argue with that. That front elevation, it looks very nice.
I think the point is, I mean, as I was making, I think personally it's a very striking design, and aesthetically, I have no argument with it at all. I quite like the design, but I just don't think it's in keeping with the street scene, which is why I'd like to refer it back to the planning officer for compliance with that. conscious of their decision regarding the Lineside Road planning application, which was refused on not consistent with the.
I think, Chair, I'd move that we put it through with, our comments are that we have concerns regarding Des one. And that's all we need to say, really, isn't it?
Yep, that's effectively my recommendation.
Either way.
Put it through, highlighting to the planning officer our concerns with regard to Des 1 and Des 2, and then leave it to them to make the decision.
But, the only thing I don't like about it is the flat roof at the back. I don't like flat roof.
No, I know your long-standing views on flat roofs. I share some of them, and therefore, are we happy to effectively send it through? We're registering our concerns regarding compliance with Des 1 and Des 2.
Yeah.
And leave it to the. Okay, so again, I got a second for that. Oh, yes.
Now you've discussed it.
Yes.
Not before. Living on Mill Hayes Road, I'm quite familiar with the area. There are a number of properties which may not necessarily be on Mill Hayes Road, but certainly one that's on the corner of there. And as you go down onto Warm Road.
Very cool.
Again, it's a radical design.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the corner of Colwyn Drive.
Yeah.
Price, I think it is.
Yeah, the big
Clear.
Yes, lovely.
table.
And that's very much, I think, adds to the area rather than detracts from it.
I 100% support that. And as I say, my personal view is that the design is striking and looks looks much better from the front, but it's I don't believe it's in keeping with the street scene, which is the planning consideration. Aesthetics and design, aesthetics are not part of the planning policy, sadly, but there you go. So I think it's going through. I'll give a show of hands on. I think Councillor Jones seconded, effectively put it through, referred to the planning officer, referencing our concerns regarding compliance with Des 1 and Des 2. Can I have a show of hands on that? Again, unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to the final one. Sorry, this has taken on so long, but there were a lot of applications this month. Right, okay. I've rolled two applications together, SMDC 2025-0232 and 0235. Both of these are for Sainsbury's Supermarkets Limited, Sainsbury's Wharf Road, Biddulph. The first is for the construction and the second is for an advertisement consent, for the construction of a retail pod Class E and associated signage, that's for 0232, and the advertisement consent for the construction of a retail pod Class E and associated signage is 0235. No pre-application advice. Essentially, it's the construction or installation of a Timpson's retail pod in the existing car park. Sadly, it's going to occupy the 3 parking spaces I tend to use immediately in the existing one-way section to the west of the basement level entrance atrium. And then the second one is advertisement consent for the above. It's a standard Timpson's pod design, burgundy and aluminium signage, large timber cladding. You may have seen these in other supermarkets around the county. No design access statements, no supporting statements. It's not in the green belt. BNG isn't applicable. None of the neighbourhood plan policies apply to it. The only additional comment I was making is that it's an additional, useful additional retail facility. I don't think there are any local shoe repair shops in Biddulph Town Centre. I stand to be corrected on that. However, it may have potential impact on local independent traders, e.g. Snelsons who do key cutting. But aside, I would recommend putting it through with no adverse comments. I've got Councillor Jones speaking and Councillor Rogers. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I can't see a reason to oppose it really, but it would have been nice to see Timpson's going into one of the empty shops in the high street rather than giving the shoppers yet another reason not to come off Sainsbury's car park and go up the high street. But that's not a valid planning reason, that's just my thought. So I can't see a reason to oppose it, and I would go with NAC as you've said, Chair.
Yeah. It's going, but as you come down the one-way system, where there's 2 white cars, it's going in those 3 parking spaces there.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's not impacting the parent and child, and it's not impacting any of the disabled bays, because those are general use bays.
Is it?
I know, we can't, yeah. They're those convenient places for going into the store.
Is it facing the store?
It's facing away from the store. It's facing the car park.
If we have a slight concern, Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes.
About the health and safety aspects of people ingressing and egressing into a live car park. That's what I was thinking. If it was the other way round, where you effectively entering it from the paved area, to me, that seems safe. Actually, there must be an assessment of.
I don't know. In that case, can we pull up the diagram? Because I don't think they actually specifically say which way round it is.
That's the only query.
Read it as being the other way. So yes,
That's honestly the only
Yeah.
query. At the end of the day, it would be very good if they occupied a store. Obviously, there's costs associated with that, but zoom it into where it is.
no, you need to get
Face-
facing.
the-
No, that it's in those three spaces there. So you need the post
Post.
on the
Proposed.
proposed sighting there. But I think looking at that,
This-
the arrow is,
Well, but, yeah.
the arrow, I think, is suggesting you're coming into the front of it.
Yeah.
Again, through it
Onto the-
is less deep, it is narrower.
Yeah.
than the parking space, so there is actually provision to walk at the front. My fear is that you're having to access it by stepping through moving traffic.
Yeah, no, I knew it was further back in the spaces, but you're still coming out into.
Into a threshold.
Yeah.
I would presume, Chair, that the area at the front will be a raised, area curb with a curb.
Across the front, again, I don't think they provide an illustration of that. They do provide a standard illustration of the Timpson's pod, which is that.
And the illustration of the Timpson's pod.
There you go. Or an illustration of a standard Timpson's pod. Okay,
What's that it's got there? Is that a handrail?
that's a handrail coming forward, yes.
So it's elevating the
No,
floor.
actually, the front is coming further forward.
Hmm.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Accessibility.
Well, that's, it will have to be compliant with.
And
Perhaps a ramp is.
I don't know. I think perhaps, do we need to put a comment on it that that it should be ensure that it is accessible with a ramp? Are they?
Yeah.
Okay, you know these. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that additional information.
Chair, for me,
Yeah.
on this committee,
I know you're not, but it's okay. I'm giving you lots of latitude tonight, Councillor Yates, on account of how
it was the other ones.
brief you were the other day.
Interesting, because I had the SNDC knowledge, like on TPOs and things, but I just think a statement on the assessment for pedestrian safety.
Yes, I think, yeah, yes. Okay, so we add to that, while we're making no adverse comments, we need to highlight the potential implications on pedestrian safety, ensuring accessibility. I think we've got that covered already.
There is a term, it's
And registering our disappointment.
access statement for pedestrian safety.
Yeah. Okay, right. And if you want to, do you feel we should be registering our disappointment that they haven't actually taken one of the vacant shops? I don't know. Right, okay. So we're happy with that? So.
It's a lot of keys to cut that in.
Yeah, okay. We've proposed no adverse comments.
Yeah, they're not interested in putting people on the ice street. They want people in the shop. This is why they're putting that there.
Yeah.
You can't blame them.
No.
I think it'd be much safer just in 180 degrees round, nice and safe pedestrian area.
Yeah.
Big sign on the back, Timpson's here, walk around, I don't like
I think,
it.
yeah, I agree with you there. I think it would make more sense to do that because there's nothing behind there. It's just bollards. So again, it's worthwhile highlighting that. Yeah, we can raise that as a potential issue.
No.
Other than that, the proposals with those caveats, no adverse comments. Do we have a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second you.
Okay, Councillor Jones again. He's my right-hand man tonight. Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Can I have a show of hands?
Sorry, Chair, is that for both applications?
Yeah, so we're taking them together as both. Yes. So have a show of hands, please, for those. Thank you again, unanimous. Okay, right. Thank you. At this point, Councillor Yates, considering your considerable contribution to this evening's meetings, and there are vacancies on this committee, would you like to be a member of this, join this committee? Because of your
If you would like me to be on this committee as a committee, then I've been on it
well, last year,
2 years. I just, when obviously relinquishing the role as mayor, where I was automatically on all the committees as the council law now knows. I actually said, I don't mind what I'm on, take me on, off and whatever. So, yes, if you like me to, but I wasn't certainly pushing.
Yes.
To take that to council.
Yes.
Councillor.
Yes. So can we please add that to the two,
Right, well, that's good because there are only 11 members.
okay, right, okay.
Can I just say something, Chair? I'll just point out to you that we normally do this meeting in about an hour and a quarter, an hour and 3/4 now. And I'm sure there's no connection between Yates being
It's
here.
an hour and 6:30. It's now quarter to, in fact, it's an hour and point of clarification, it's an hour and 14 minutes.
We haven't finished yet, councillor Yates, either.
Well,
We're only up
that's not my fault.
We're only up to 10. I would point out, councillor Jones, that normally we have about 4 to 6 applications and we had about 12 for this one. And we didn't start the meeting until actually.
I said that with my tongue.
I know you did. But okay, so moving on.
Details.
Gentlemen. Now I started that, I apologise. Let's move on. Item 10, new decision letters received from the district council. So, running through, what have we got here? 91, we had no adverse comments. The planning commission was approved. 0066, recommended approval with conditions. And planning commission was approved. It would be interesting to know if there were any conditions applied by the district council on those. 011, 190 Congleton Road, we recommended approval, and it was approved. Okay, moving on to item 11, appeals. There don't appear to be any appeals, and we've dealt with all the supplementaries. So this concludes the business of, which I declare now closed at 7:40.